I understand the chairman is still called on the floor that the first vote is not completed yet. If St. Peter ever comes to any of you fellows and says you have 10 minutes to live, you should say, could it please be during a 10-minute Senate vote? It'll give you a lot more leeway. Mr. Stephanie, first I want to commend you. I know you get hard questions at these kinds of hearings for the funding of the dry dock project over the last 2 years at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. That's going to be a dramatic increase of capacity at that shipyard, and it's going to serve the Navy well. So I appreciate that the funding is there and was last year and again this year at a slightly higher amount. So thank you for that. Mr. Stephanie, I want to talk about the transition from DDG Flight 3 to DDX. As you know, the Congress encouraged the Navy, and the Navy, I think, has been working in this direction, to allow and encourage Ingalls and Bath Iron Works to work together on the design, on getting it right. I'm a great believer in competition, but I believe that having the design in place on a consistent basis, and that the manufacturers can be a lot of help in being sure that what is designed is buildable. So I hope you'll continue to maintain that posture of allowing the two shipyards to be in discussion with the Navy on the DDX.
Yes, Senator, that's exactly our approach. The design, come up with the design together with the same digital tools, digital manufacturing, and then once we get into production, then we'll start competing. Going forward, we have awarded a contract to Bath and to Ingalls just recently to be part of our design team. And as we get into the design process, we're going to work together very closely.
Two thoughts. As I've served on this committee for 10 years, let's be sure the design is mature before we start building. In looking at some of the overrun problems of the Ford, for example, it's when we're doing R&D while we're building that we get into trouble. So that's one observation. The other is, having worked closely with Bath Iron Works and knowing of Ingalls' work situation, we want to try to avoid a trough between the DDG Flight 3 and the DDX. In other words, if these yards lose welders, they ain't coming back. There are just too many other places for them to go. So there has to be we have to be thinking about the transition so that it's a smooth one and not a loss of work, a loss of employment during a 2 or 3 year period where one ship ends and the other starts. Do you see what I'm suggesting?
Yes, sir. You're right where we are. We see it as a 3-year period, and so we'll have to be building DDG 51s and the new destroyer over that 3-year transition period, and we're committed to do that. We're not going to stop 51s and then just immediately go to the new program. We're going to have this 3-year overlap.
That's helpful, and I appreciate that. I was concerned there were only 2 DDGs in the president's budget. Part of we're talking about the industrial base. Part of the maintaining the industrial base is a consistent demand signal. That's why this committee recommended and the Congress adopted a 15 ship multi-year. So I'm sure we're going to be discussing this in the committee, but I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to add an additional destroyer. Admiral Khan, you have a wonderful title. You're in charge of warfighting requirements and capabilities. My question is, and I asked General Milley this question this morning in the full committee, warfare has changed dramatically just in the last 5 years. Electronic, cyber, directed energy, space. Do you feel that we're taking adequate account of the changed nature of the battlefield in terms of our strategy going forward of shipbuilding and projection of power by the Navy?
I do, sir. And I think it's a 3-fit-up view in terms of getting to that hybrid fleet, which is part of CNO's vision for the future. And there is risk that we have to burn down. We already make investments in cyber for defensive cyber. We're up to 30 ships by 2030. We'll have the capabilities for at least HM&E perspective, from a cyber perspective. I'll stop there and ask for your time.
Okay. General, I know that your Marines have to be prepared for no GPS, electronics out, no communication. I mean, this is the first step in a conflict is going to be this overall electronic cyberspace compromise, and I hope that's something you're taking into account.
So we're exercising that way right now. Alt PNT, position, navigation, timing. We're doing that time now, sir, and we're going to continue to stress that. Kind of what you're alluding to, though, is the left of bang, people say, which is a term I really don't care for, because bang is happening now in cyberspace, info
Sure is.
domain. So it's and we trained to that time now, sir. So yeah, we're absolutely taking that into account.
The Secretary of Navy was in my office last week, and he brought a sextant with me to prove to me that this is being taken into account. Admiral Khan, one more point, and it sounds somewhat facetious, but it's serious. We'd like you to bring some Navy ships to Maine, and I'll tell you why. There's a huge diminution of military presence in New England, in the Northeast generally. Almost all the bases are closed. Our young people are growing up without seeing anybody in uniform. And for you to have a ship at the Eastport, the 4th of July festival or 4th of July in Portland, that means a lot. And it means a lot to the citizens, but also to exposing the military to the young people. And we're having a recruiting problem, as you well know. And one way to counteract that, not to compromise readiness in any way, is to have the Navy show a presence along our coastline. And I'm partial to Maine, but I think there's other coastline in this country. I'm not sure.
So there's various fleet weeks on both sides of the coast, but I'll take your point. Having been up in Bath for the commissioning of John Barcelone and being able to speak up there where people were thanking previous military members who served, and then I had the chance to speak, and I asked the shipbuilders to stand up and say thank you for your service. There's many ways to serve your nation. So I think recognizing shipbuilding as serving your country is part of the narrative that we need to get out there in all the places.
It's got to be more than a job, it's a mission, and you can help us to underline that. Senator Kramer, further question?